Hi, welcome back, everybody.
I almost say good morning. I think it's morning.
I'm Roy, and this is Val, and we're back live with you guys. And we're gonna we're gonna show you how to make some boxes today. I think was the plan. I mean, we were thinking about it a little while ago, and it's getting close to Christmas, so we're like, well, why don't we make some nice, quick gifts, right? If you're in a hurry, you want to make some gifts or decorations for the house. So we're using lots of bevels, but I guess you don't have to use bevels.
No, you can always cut your own. Well, you have an example of that, but the bevels are quick and easy, and that was part of the. We have something else we're going to show you too with some bevels. Bevels are just so pretty, and they're just so easy to work with that the stock sizes are fun to play around.
That's right. So if you're like I am, if you're lazy and in a hurry, then you can. I mean, they're nice because you can just foil them and you're ready to go. But I am going to show you, or we're going to show you, I guess, 2 different ways of doing boxes, because there's a couple of ways of doing them as far as constructing them goes. And I guess in some ways it could be for any kind of really, I mean, we're going to just show you some small little simple boxes, but you could certainly make them bigger. I am going to show you how to put a lid on one of them, so if you want to see how that's done, that can be a little tricky sometimes.
I think often people are intrigued by the tube and the rod hinge system.
Yeah, that is, and it's not always that easy to think about how to do it, right? So
No, not really. And there's tricks.
Yes, so we're going to
I
show
hope
you that.
remember them because I'm not sure I do.
And we're going to show you a couple things. So let's show you the, let's do the bevel one first. You want to do that one?
Let's do that.
Okay.
Let's do that.
So one of the things that's going to help us today is working with this professional boxer, if that's the official name.
Is that the name?
It is.
I was thinking it was the boxer.
The boxer. That's
the
professional boxer. It's a good thing we're not using the amateur boxer. So,
that's good.
thanks. So, what's really nice about this one is just a nice way of making sure you get nice right angles. It's also a nice way of kind of holding up the pieces. So I'm going to show you a couple pieces I'm doing here. So here's part of a box that I'm working on, another bevel box. And I have the front. This is going to be the front, and I already have it soldered. One thing I wanted to show you real quickly is tinning, right? So I don't know if you've heard the term tinning before. It sounds kind of fancy, but really all tinning is adding a little bit of solder to change the color of the copper. So if you look again, so here you can see I have copper foil on this piece, right? And on the back side, I've already tinned it, which means I just put a little solder around there, because this surface here is going to be the inside of the box, and sometimes it's hard to get a soldering iron in there. If you're trying to do it. So I just hit it, make it all silver looking in case I miss a spot. I don't have to worry about any of the copper showing through.
And it looks like you used silverback foil on that as well.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. So that's also really helpful with any time you're using anything that's transparent, like the bevels are. We use a silver-backed foil,
Copper
it's called,
foil.
right? So, so the inside, I don't know how well you can see it, but the inside of the foil is all silver. I know it's kind of hard to see, I think, in the bevels, but trust us, if you were here, you could easily see it.
You can see it right there.
Yep.
It's just copper, the regular copper on the outside. When you peel the adhesive back, then that's where you see the silver. And that's just simply because if we're going to leave the solder silver, then we won't have any copper showing through. With the clear glass, if you don't get it foiled evenly, then you can kind of look through and see the copper on the other side. So if that makes sense, I think we talked about this in that other live, didn't we?
Yeah, we do have we're going to cover soldering obviously here, but probably not as in-depth as we have in the previously. So if you get a chance, you want to go back, check out our Facebook video page, or go to our YouTube channel, and you'll see that that Val and I did this. I mean, really, it's a riveting presentation on copper foil and soldering and stuff. I mean, I think it's up for an Emmy.
I was going to say the same thing. I think it's up for some sort of award.
Yeah. Well, it should be. So I'm going to show you real quick how to tin something. Just
flux is important.
Yeah. So right, flux is real important. So all I'm doing is just taking a little bit of flux, running around the back of that. I'm going to grab a little bit of solder on my iron. Oh, one thing I want to show you real quickly is so this is a Weller 100 watt soldering iron. It normally comes with a much bigger tip, like a 3/8 inch tip. And I find it a lot easier to use one of these smaller tips. So what's nice about this particular soldering iron is you can, swap out, you can buy different size tips and swap them out depending on what you're doing. And I think Val definitely agrees with me on that, right? That doing these boxes.
The smaller tip really comes in.
We sell another iron that I didn't bring in. It's a Hako that automatically comes with a small tip. So again, works for that type of thing. But I'm just gonna grab a tiny bit of solder on the end of this, on my tip of the iron there, and I'm just gonna come around. You can see how quickly it just turns that to silver. One thing, when you're tinning something, you don't want to spend a lot of time going back and forth across the foil, because you can actually melt the adhesive that's on the foil if you hang around too long. And it doesn't need to look perfect, right? I'm just trying to make it look silver. So like I said, in case I mess up when I'm soldering and I don't cover all the edges, at least I know that won't be exposed.
Right.
So I have, I'm going to do the front and a side here. I'm sorry. And so I can come in here and then slide those in there, and then I can just, all I have to do is just really just hold them up like this. And you can see how this gives me this really nice right angle. And I'm going to come in and flux here again. If you guys remember, we need flux. Flux is acid that cleans the copper. So it takes any oxidation off this, the copper, so the solder will stick. It also, oh, hey, this is like, oh, hey, look at that, it's just standing up on its own. I can tell you normally it doesn't do that. So often I set my solder up like this. If you can see this little setup, did I get it right into? So now I can just come in and grab some solder. I don't have to hold the solder, hold the iron, hold all the bevels at the same time. And then I'm gonna just tack solder, which is just putting a little bit of solder here or there, mainly just to hold it. So there's no reason for me at this point to really work on that seam or try to make it look nice. I really just trying to get those two pieces to hold together. So then I can come around. It does stand up a little bit easier now that I have two of them soldered together. This is the back I'm going to be using for this piece, and this is, if you're not familiar with it, it's a type of glass called ML Walker. They make these really fun mirrored glasses that are like hand painted. Yeah, if you see the bottom of this, the one with the dichroic bevels in it, that's another one of those ML Walkers. They come in a wide variety of colors and styles, but I thought it'd be nice to use as a back on this one. So I know we kind of debate back and forth with bevels about whether to, sometimes if I'm going to use it like as a candle holder, I'll put a bevel in the back so it just catches the light a little better, or sometimes we put bevels on the bottom of the piece, which like sort of like I did with the dichroic one, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to come in here, flux those. Again, grab a little solder off here. One reason why I tack solder is if you're doing something wrong, it's really quite easily to take it apart, right? I mean, I know that
It releases.
I sometimes have put the bevel in facing the wrong way before.
Exactly. I did
And
that
then you
on
have to
this
come
one.
around and do it. So I've had, in class, I've had people put the mirror the wrong way. It's easy to, when you're just so worried about trying to get it to look square, it's easy to lose track of what goes
But you know
where.
what? This really is helping a lot.
Yeah, it's making it pretty easy.
It is.
I mean, even for somebody like me to do it. So I'm going to come in flux here. One thing that you're going to notice is that these are three, like the ones I'm using here for the sides, and I'm going to use this one for the bottom, these 3-inch square bevels, but I'm not sure how familiar you are with bevels, but they are not always exactly the same size. You might get 4 bevels and they're all slightly different. So don't be surprised by that. And I'll show you here as we're working that it's actually easy to compensate for that. One thing that I'm also doing that you probably can't tell is I'm actually constructing my box upside down.
I wondered if you were going to.
Yeah, if I was going to talk about that, right? So I'm doing it upside down, and I'll show you in just a second. Let me just finish tack soldering these last 2 spots here. You might see that it doesn't quite line up, right? It doesn't fit as well, and part of this has to do with just the differences in the bevels. And again, that's not going to be an issue, so let's come in and tack solder up there. Sometimes, if you're lucky, you can kind of squeeze the bottom one. In fact, I think I'll take it out and see if I can. Sometimes you can kind of squeeze it with your fingers and get that to be a little closer, and then, oh, I lost my solder. And then tack on it. So I'm constructing this upside down, and the reason why is because part of it is I was talking about if there's a little slight difference in the bevels. When I flip this over, the top of my box now is going to be perfectly level, right? So visually, when you're looking at it, you'll see that they all look about the same. And if the bottoms are off a little, no one's going to notice the bottom, especially
It's easier to
once we
hide that. if it's off on the bottom, right, it's easier to hide it in this seam down here. It's not as noticeable as if one of these sides were higher than the other. That would be way more noticeable. So it's a trick.
So one of the things I didn't talk about, but hopefully you guys noticed, was that so in this particular construction, I am attaching the box. So since every side is exactly the same size, they're 3-inch squares, I'm attaching the inside corners of each one of those bevels. So again, if you kind of maybe look close, you can see that the inside part of each bevel is what I'm attaching. So I'm not overlapping one over the other. They're touching on the inside, and sometimes that makes it a little tricky. So
yeah, and it basically then leaves this V.
Yep.
That's where your seam is going to go, but that's how you'll know if you've got them positioned correctly, because it automatically will form that opening, that V.
Yeah, I'm going to show you in a minute here or two a different box construction, and there one side overlaps the other side, and you'll see how they look different and how they kind of go together. So the fact also that I just tack soldered this, I don't know if you can see, but I have a little bit of flexibility here. So I can, in case I didn't even get it real square, or like I said, a lot of times it's probably more that the bevels maybe not, since they're not always the same size, that sometimes they don't line up well, and it might look a little off, but I can kind of move it and squeeze it. So basically what I'm going to do is just fuse it to the bottom, solder it to the bottom. I said fuse, didn't I? Okay. So this is going to be the bottom. I flipped it back over again, if you notice that. So the bottom of the box, again, is resting on the table. And then I'm just going to flux this real quick. When I was goofing around over here, I accidentally dripped some solder on my bevel, right? But that's okay, because I need some solder I'm going to tin this first. So I don't need any solder, because I already have solder there. So I'm just going to come in, grab that, drag it around. You can see that it really doesn't take very much solder at all to tin something. So I am working with just 60-40 solder. So if you're familiar with solder, this one is a 60-40. It is 60% tin, 40% lead. Val and I were talking a little bit earlier about solder and you know, whether or not we should use a lead-free. We have a lead-free here on the table if you want to see that one. And I don't know how you feel about it so much, Val. I know for me personally that my only concern with these types of things is if kids are handling them. So I know that when my kids were younger and I was making some things for them, I always made anything I thought they were going to handle, I did with lead-free solder. But I think, you know, as adults, I think we're probably pretty safe, right? I don't think we're going to be.
But you're right. It's just that people are going to be handling it. Some people even went as far as to, because lead-free is a little harder to work with. It's a little harder to get smooth and not as much as it used to be, right? But you know, some people would paint it with their seams with like fingernail polish.
I hadn't heard that.
Yeah.
To cover the solder.
The lead,
that's great.
You know, so not have to go to the hassle of the lead-free, but just to keep the residue from coming off on anybody who handles it.
So if you can see, I'm just kind of lining up the bevel here. So the way I always do it is I tack solder one side, then I'm gonna come over and do the other side, and this gives me an opportunity to move it around if I need to move it, right? So this one actually turned out pretty good, but sometimes you have to just kind of squeeze the body of the box to match the whatever that is, but this one does pretty good. So I'm gonna come in and tack solder that. Oops. So the soldering iron tip, if you're not familiar with working with, you know, a damp sponge, so what the damp sponge does is just clean off the soldering iron tip, just so that see how the solder now sticks better and doesn't want to just roll off. So I was being lazy and not wiping off the tip. Okay, good, right? Mm-hmm. So as I mentioned before, so now since this is the top of the box, it's nice and level, and if the bottom is uneven, that bevel I just soldered there on the bottom is it's flat, right? So the box isn't gonna like wobble or tip or anything. I'm not gonna do the entire construction on this, but let me just show you how we're gonna finish the seams real quick, and then I'll get into the other box. So we have these, I'm gonna use the bigger ones. Wedgies. Is that what they're called?
I think so.
Yeah, these are wedgies.
That's what we call them.
So they're really nice for like holding things, you know. So as
They're a
Val
little
was
bit
mentioning,
weighted too. They don't look like they would work because they look real light, but they actually are a little weighted.
and they're like made out of some kind of foam, so they don't slide either, right? I mean, you can't just like slide this across this surface. So once you kind of set it down, it kind of stays in place. The tricky thing about this box when we're soldering the seams, as Val was pointing out, is we have this kind of V shape that's in here, right? And that seam, and it's like a trough almost. In order to solder that, if I solder it like this and try to solder that, the solder's just going to roll off and go to the side. So I really need to hold this thing like this. Now, I mean, I could do it with my bare hands if I wanted to, but really that's kind of risky. These little handy wedgy things work real well because they'll just hold it right at a 45-degree angle. I don't have to do anything, and you're not going to burn these if solder drips on them. You're going to be totally fine. So then I'm going to come in and will solder this seam real quick. Oh, I forgot to flux. I was testing Val to see if she was paying attention or not.
Apparently I wasn't.
That's all right.
You do flux a lot less than I do.
Yeah, I'm not much.
I know, but what do you think about that?
I don't really like it. So I just, as I was doing this, I just realized that, let me show you how I really normally do them. This is how I normally do it real quick. Let me show you. So the first thing I do is fill it with some solder and not really care about what it looks like, right? All I want to do is get some in there and fill the gap, because what you might find out is sometimes the gap is wider than you think. And again, it goes back to that thing we were talking about where the bevels aren't always perfect. So I usually just put some solder in there, then I'll go to the next seam, do it, and follow it. And then by the time I come back around, this is cool enough for me to solder. The reason why I don't always try to get this perfect is if you get this hot enough to flow like we want it to, and if there's a gap, it's just going to drip through your box. And I think I was mentioning earlier that, you know, I'm kind of trying to do this efficiently as I can, right, without having to go back in and clean the inside a whole lot.
It's irritating when that does it, because then you really do have to wait. You have to let it cool off. Once it's hot enough that it drips.
But once it's cool like this, now I can go back and now I can work, you know, try to make it look nice. And the thinking is that's a little bit of cooler solder that's there. As long as I'm not hanging around for a long time, it will, it won't melt and
the barrier, right?
and
so
fall
you can now
through.
lay
So
the finished stuff on top and not hopefully melt what's underneath.
So one thing you'll see with these types, when the solder seams get this wide, as they cool, sometimes they dimple a little bit, and so it's really, as Val will attest, right? It's a challenge sometimes to get these seams to look really super smooth. So I'm going to show in a little while some really easy decorative soldering techniques to kind of disguise that fact. But for now, imagine that's what I would do to all the seams, right? So I would solder all these seams, you know, so they look like that. Let me show you about the top real quick, and I'll just show you how I do that. Sometimes what I like to do on the tops is give them, I mean, I could just come in and tin it, right, and turn it silver. That could be like a pretty nice way to do it. But I like to add a little extra solder there just to give it a slightly rounded sort of look to it.
Me too.
Yeah, you do the same thing, right? I do it with sun catchers sometimes too, on the outside edges of sun catchers. So what I'm going to do here is just add some solder, but you see where instead of dragging it so much, I'm kind of placing it, and what this does is give it a little more dimension to the top. I'm kind of keeping the solder right there. If I'm dragging the soldering iron, it will pull the solder with me, and I kind of want it to stay there. So that one looks, oh, that doesn't look too bad.
No, it's fine.
It's kind of lumpy, but it's all right. But it gives it a little more dimension, I think, to the top surface, and sometimes I think that extra solder protects that foil that's on there, so it's less likely to kind of bump off. But so anyways, that's not too bad.
No.
I'm gonna must be for sale later. Val's Etsy.
I'll buy it.
Thanks. Let me show you then the other construction real quick. The other type of box, and this one.
Our cheat sheet fell. Don't worry about it.
Oh, which reminds us. Hey,
man.
if you guys have questions, you know, feel free to make comments in the section below, or you can always email us at Facebook at delphiglass.com, or I'm sure there's another one in there.
Message us on Facebook,
Message us
Instagram.
there you go. Thanks.
We're here for you guys.
Thanks, Gilly. So I want to show one just out of stained glass, and I make these kind of boxes all the time. Or like I said, a lot of times I think of them as kind of candle shelters, because sometimes the glass is just so much fun, right? I mean, the glass is so beautiful. It's like, what else do I have to do to it, right? It's so interesting. So this was all from one piece of glass. It's from Yakagani, if you would like to know, right? So all of these came from just a single square foot, which I thought was pretty
This
interesting.
is one
right?
too that I especially assemble upside down.
Yes, yeah.
Because I can cut 5 2x5 pieces of glass and have 5 different shapes, you know. So I mean, that really helps when you cut your own. For sure.
Yeah, if you're cutting your own, definitely want to do it upside down. The other thing too is that because of the glass, you know, this isn't as smooth as a bevel is, and sometimes just that fact makes them kind of fit kind of weird. So I mark them. I don't know. Well, I guess they're upside down for you. I wrote F for front, B for back, and this is really just more for me, so I know that when I'm assembling which one goes where. I guess it doesn't really matter, other than. So this one is, if I said I was going to do it upside down, I guess.
So this one is, whereas the bevels they're equal sizes. You know, this is a 4-inch, so each side's a 4-inch, the bottom's 4-inch. You did a 3-inch a minute ago. These,
oh, sorry.
Okay, no. So this particular pattern is, there are 2 pieces that are the same size. There are two pieces that are the same size.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So the ones that have S's on them are the side, right? So those two are the same size, and the front and the back are the same size.
And what are those sizes?
Well, that's a great question.
We can post that.
Yeah, we'll post it because I don't remember.
This is one that we always used in the beginning stained glass class, and it's really a fun little box to make, I think.
So we'll post that, and we'll also post the tools that we're using today to link on our Facebook page. So if anybody wants to add them, I see Kathy wants the wedges, so we'll get links for you guys.
Everybody, no.
They are helpful. They really are. I mean, you can play around and use other things to try it, but those are sweet the way they just kind of.
Again, I gotta go back and set my solder up. Remember, this is I always think is a 3-handed thing. So yesterday I was trying to clip these with clips or something to hold them up, and it didn't work as well. I usually just use my hand, and sometimes that's better because then you can, in case you gotta move them. With this type of glass, it's not always real flat. So
here you're actually overlapping.
Yeah. I don't know how well you can see that, but this piece of glass here overlaps that piece, right?
Yeah.
And we're gonna do the same thing here. We're gonna tack solder this. So come in here, just try to get these two.
We will, Amanda. We will post the professional boxer as well as the wedges for you guys.
I know, it just keeps tipping, so.
I always do mine on the top.
Do you really? Mm-hmm. Oh, you mean up here?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Isn't it?
Roy, did you flux?
I did flux, yes, but my iron is getting too hot. See, look at that.
So Val, you're saying you solder on the top of that?
Yeah,
When I tack right on the top, and then then I actually will take it once I've got the whole top tacked. I'll take it and I will gently turn it upside down, and then I tack the bottom. And for me, it feels like I have a little bit of play with bringing the ends together, but you know, we get the same result. It's just a little different way of going about it.
Yeah. So I'm putting the other side on here. Right. I do often on these, again, because the glass is not really flat, so it does warp, and I think that's probably some of the point that Val's making. Instead of, on that one, you notice I didn't tack the top and tack the bottom, I just tacked one side of it. So, I mean, one end of it. So that's the same thing I'm going to be doing here, is just tacking the top.
You can kind of see here, it's got some texture to it, so that's what they're talking about.
Yeah, this is again, if you're not familiar with the Yakagani glass, it's a hand-rolled glass, so because of that, I mean, it tends to not be perfectly flat, but it's also one of the things that makes it pretty interesting, right? Thank you very much. I mean, I know what I'm doing doesn't really make a difference. If I flip these pieces either way, I don't really have a direction, to be honest, but.
Belinda, he is using flux on that brush so that the solder will stick.
Yeah, I have some flux in this little glass thing, so we pour a little bit in here instead of contaminating the flux in the bottle, right? So instead of dipping directly into the bottle, we have this little glass dish, so we put a little bit of flux in, and then I'm just dipping in there. So I'm doing it pretty quickly, so you probably don't see me doing it. And as Val said, I don't use a lot of flux, so
So Kim is asking why these corners are overlapping, whereas the others were not.
Oh, Kim, you gotta wait and see. There's a reason. It actually has to do with soldering, soldering the seams, and you'll see that, I think we think this is simpler, right? I mean, a simpler way of constructing a box.
With them overlapping is simpler.
Yeah. Overlapping,
yes,
and that's why 2 of the sides are bigger than the other 2 sides. So
yeah, because we're
it allows
compensating for the
right, because we're still going to get a square box. It's just that we cut 2 of the pieces a little bigger, so now that allows us to overlap, and that takes up that extra.
Yeah, it should still look like a square box. Right, I'm done. Sorry.
It also, the beauty of this box, and he's going to show you, I'm probably giving away your big finale, but
Give it away.
too bad, is that it solders really easy because it's not corners with the V anymore. Now you can just lay it flat and just run your seams. Yeah, see, that's how I do it.
You see, so then flip it over, and then, so again, the top should be really pretty nice and flat because I was doing it on the boxer, or if you're doing it on the table, that gives you a nice flat surface. Now here, since I only tack solder, I can just move these up to where I want them with my fingers, right? So again, part of it is either, I didn't cut them straight, or the glass is kind of wavy, so either way, I can compensate for any kind of error like that. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to tack solder just to hold it in place.
Then after you do this, maybe Kayla can get a shot from the top, and you can see how these pieces are inside,
Absolutely.
Yes, here's one.
Get it all tacked because it's harder to see when it's all tacked.
Oh, you said don't?
Well, go ahead and tack it, but I think when this side's not pulled back and even, it shows how it's inside those 2 end pieces.
Oh, I see what she's saying.
So she can get it there. It just shows.
Yeah, so you can just see, right? So you can see that this is inside that, right? As opposed to going to the inside corners like we were doing with the... And I just realized I don't have a bottom for this box.
Oh, well, that's okay.
That's all right. You guys get the idea.
You would still attach it the same way.
Yep. And actually, I'll tell you about when I get done with this, I'll tell you about bottoms real quick. Because I often don't, when I'm doing this type of box, I don't cut the bottom out right away. I cut all 4 sides and I solder them just like this. And then what's going to happen is, instead of me having to try to cut the perfect size bottom, do you do the same thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. That must be, man,
It's like you've worked together
we're
before.
geniuses. So now I've got this all tacked. So now I'm going to just set this down and then, or measure it, right? And then that's going to be the size of my bottom, and I just go cut the bottom. So it's exactly to the size. And again, what the advantage to that is it saves you from having to try to do the math in your head and go, I got to make something that's exactly like this. Because part of it has to do with the thickness of the glass, right? I mean, these glass, they're inconsistent. If I did this out of a different brand of glass, it would be probably a different size bottom. I just find it easier. Now, if I had cut a bottom, I would do this, pretend this is the bottom, I would just put the glass right on top and then do the same thing and just tack solder it. Does that make sense? So it would cover this whole seam and you wouldn't see it.
Okay, so we've got a question from Kim. She's asking, can you recommend any wedgies or other jigs for soldering bevels in an equilateral triangle? She's playing around with various 3D prism shapes, including pentagons.
The only thing I've ever made is pyramids, right, with the triangle bevels, or 3-sided ones, I guess, or 4-sided ones, but I don't know of a jig that holds those in place. I'm not sure of one. I know this. The wedgies are nice, but they're definitely just a 45-degree angle. So
That might be if you've got a woodworker friend, they might be able to build you some sort of.
I know when I was always working with the triangles, if you just tack solder them a little bit, it gives you some flexibility to try to get things to come together. So you don't always have to they don't have to be so perfect. But
Carrie's right. Morton did make a yellow plastic tool. The Morton. I'd have to look it up again.
I remember it.
I'm not sure if we still carry it, but I'll look for that. I know exactly what you're talking about, Carrie.
Yeah, I know exactly what she's talking about, but I don't think we carry them anymore.
I'm using this box for a second.
I'm sitting here.
Okay, all right. Okay. So this is the reason I'm going to do these top 2 seams here. So this is the reason why we use this or do this type of construction, right? So I don't need the wedgies to solder any of the seams because it's just going to sit flat on the table like this, and I can just come in here. You'll probably see maybe on this side there's a little bit of a gap there, but again, that's just because of the glass is not really totally flat. So usually what I do in that situation would be just come in, put some solder down, and like I said, I don't really even care what it looks like. I'm just trying to fill the gap, right? Now my box is moving all over the place because I didn't put a bottom on it, right? So, so I'm using this other bevel to kind of this other box to kind of help me keep it relatively straight. But do you see that, right? So then I would come in after that had cooled down, and then
yeah, maybe do this one.
Yeah, I could do this one.
And then flip it over. And the beauty of this too is, right, you're gonna run these two seams on this side, directly opposite on the other side. You have two seams to run. On the ends, you have nothing. You have no seam at all. So it's a quick go together.
I know, it's so quiet.
Fabulous.
My only complaint sometimes about these little tips is that they don't always cover everything. So I'm just sliding it back over because I thought I missed a spot, but
Yeah, you did. So good.
so now it's all good.
Val's eagle eye caught it.
I could see it clearly.
So then if we, as Val was pointing out, right, so if I flip this around again, my box kind of precarious here, I would solder these two seams, which again, I'm not going to take the time to do that today because I think you guys get the idea. But if you look at this side, this is the side that Val was talking about where now there's really no real seam other than the little bit of foil that's here. And you guys already know that what I would do is come in here and just tin it, right? So I am putting a little flux on it, grabbing a tiny bit of solder, making sure my tip is nice and clean. And then just come in here and tin this.
And again, with that bottom, it would be much more stable.
Oh gosh, yeah. I know. I just didn't, to be honest, I just didn't want to take the time to cut the bottom out. I figured I could just explain it to you guys. You figure that out, right? That's it, right? I guess.
Yeah, that's good. I think they get it.
You get it? Good.
So in tinning, it's basically, I think you think of it more like it's just turning the copper silver. It's not trying to lay down any kind of amount.
Yeah,
It's just,
I agree.
If it turns it silver, then that's
Yeah,
that's
here
all you do.
there's such a small amount. There's no real reason to try to build up that seam at all,
Right.
right? I mean, it's just a little bit. We just want it to look silver. So, you know, the front would look like that or like this, right? That's the back, which could be the front. I think these they're really nice with a candle in them.
They're
They
really
light up
pretty.
pretty,
Yeah, they're really
pretty nice.
pretty.
But anyways, there's that one.
Val, can you show us your vase that you made?
Yes, I can.
Oh, yeah, showing the face.
It's right here. So it's just with bevels. So these are 2-inch, correct?
Mhm.
Yeah, 2 by 10 maybe, 2 by 8. I'm not sure, but
You could do it with any size, really.
Exactly, and this is what, like, and the same thing I did on this box too. You know, you can use all the 2 by 2 or the 2 by 10s or whatever, but that one you can split it and you know, make a little bit more of an interesting one-sided to it, which I think is kind of fun. And, you know, what you can do with those things is endless. You know, on the pattern you want to try to create. But actually, I didn't put water in this, but you know, 90% of the time these things will hold water too. So they're kind of fun. I did them years ago for gifts. I'm a big fan of bevels. I like the clear, I like the sparkle. So once again, you know, it goes along with the box. It's kind of why we decided to show a couple other things because once again, they can be quick gifts and,
that's what
and
we're
they're
thinking.
pretty. I mean, they're just so pretty. I've said that so many times the last couple of days. Look how pretty and sparkly this
And
is.
we have another line of some bevels coming out, so we get these kind
These are
of
just
custom
a couple
engraved
examples.
bevels for us. So I don't know how well they show up. I think on the
think
well, I don't know if
take
they
it
show up
off,
there, but
yeah.
it's it better showing it off. So these are just some bevels. We have these butterflies. We have a few different
against your
designs,
shirt.
right?
Put against your shirt.
Does it show up again?
Oh, yes.
Oh, look at that, right? I'm just gonna become a bevel.
I
model.
know. Okay.
We're going to use your pictures with that for the
Yeah,
website.
I'm sure, like forever.
Yes.
But then those are going to be available in February, right? So we have our
That's when our big
annual Bevel sale.
Bevel sale is going to be.
They're actually working on that catalog right now.
Yep. But
Okay.
we don't have them in stock yet, but we will for the Bevel sale. So.
Okay, so we've got 2 questions that have come in. Kim is asking, is there any concern about using solder with lead when making a candle holder?
Oh, heck no.
No.
No, you know, so the lead issue is a consumption issue with lead. So the issue is handling lead or handling solder and getting it on your hands and then getting it in your body somehow, like not washing your hands and then eating a sandwich or something, right?
Rubbing your eye.
Yeah, rubbing your eye,
Picking
exactly,
your
or
nose.
picking your
You're
nose.
not really supposed to do that anyway.
You
but
should,
it's
but especially while you're soldering, that's probably like a real good advice. You should probably write that down.
Yeah, they say that, right.
We'll put that on the cheat sheet.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, mucus membranes, right? So, inside eyeballs,
yeah.
inside your nose. And
So when
and-
it's on
and
your
body,
hands,
but-
that's when you pick up a
Yeah.
cookie or, you know, I mean, as of times it's, you want to be really careful about it, but.
So when we're soldering, we're not creating any kind of lead fumes, which some people think that's what's happening, but we're not. I mean, the iron isn't hot enough to turn the lead into any kind of vapor. If you ever see anything kind of coming off while you're soldering, it's really the flux that's burning off, which, again, that's not the greatest
No.
thing, but...
It's not great to breathe in either. So.
No, but it's not lead, so... you know, I mean, we always talk, I'm not joking about it, but really, I mean, we always talk about you should work in a well-ventilated area. At the very least, if you can crack open a window or if you can put a fan, even a fan on your work area that blows this way, right? So, like, not straight at you, but just blows anything away from you. That's always a good idea, so... Did I almost hit you?
Jeff is asking, Val, how did you manage to tin the inside of the tall, narrow box?
Yeah, Val.
So your vase.
Well, actually, this one I could get my iron down in, but I often will tin the whole
All your pieces?
Yep, the back side, the front side, and even around the thick part. I'll even tin
Yeah,
the whole
that's a good
thing.
idea sometimes.
So if they're already, I mean, it can be a little, you know, you have to be careful and turn it the right way when you're trying to tin those edges because you can drip and you can burn yourself, but it really does go together better if they're already tinned because that can be kind of an issue. So.
And Lisa's asking, how did she find more videos? So Lisa, these are on our Facebook page under the videos section. They are also uploaded to our YouTube channel, and those are broken out by crafts, fusing, stained glass. So this one will be uploaded to our stained glass section on our YouTube channel. But again, they are also on our Facebook page still, and they just hang out there. And if you guys have questions watching them later, we do go back and check for those. So.
Yeah, and if you have questions about other topics you would like us to cover, I mean, feel free to reach out to us because I think this one actually came from somebody that asked us about boxes, and so we were like, oh, what a nice tie-in, you know, if it's, you know, Christmas gifts and stuff, and you know, we think we know how to make boxes, so.
So no, you guys don't solder the inside of these.
Sometimes you do.
It depends.
If
Yeah.
it's
Let me show
got drippy or lumpy, you can just take your tip of your iron and just kind of put it in there. Same, almost kind of like trying to do like tinning.
Yeah.
I'm not adding any solder to that, but I'm going to melt down any of those lumps and things that.
This is the box that I was doing earlier, right? And normally, like I said, you know, I would have tinned all of this, all of the copper you see inside there. I would have tinned that. So that way, I don't have to actually get my iron in there. There's really no reason to solder on the inside if you can avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't do that. So sometimes, again, the advantage of using these soldering irons with small little tips is that you can sometimes get in there. Like I think Val was mentioning that she did it even with her
Yeah, with my vase.
with her vase.
But it was really just because I had some bleed through. You know, I mean, I was trying not to have to do it, but.
Yeah, I'm trying to get some solder. It helps. I don't know how well you can see any of that, right? So I'm in here trying to get in there, and all I'm doing here, it's the same deal. Basically, I'm just trying to tin on the inside now, instead of, I don't know how well you can see it, but I just changed that seam right inside there to silver. Mm-hmm. And iron did that. Iron will get that bottom seam. I think you get the idea. Again, we're trying not to make this into a 4-hour.
We've got another question. How do you suggest filling in an edge where there is a bigger gap?
Oh, pretty much like I was sort of talking about. So the first thing to do is just get solder in there. And again, don't even be concerned about what it looks like. You just kind of put your iron in, hit it, let the solder come off, and then move to another spot and just keep filling it, right? And then give it time to cool down and come back and then try to send, pretty much you're just soldering on top of solder at that point, and it shouldn't, you know, if you move quick enough like I was doing, it shouldn't bleed through.
Yeah, you're basically trying to fill the gap first before you do anything else. So sometimes that's just almost like a film, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just trying to, because the bigger the gap, the trickier it is.
Well, you know, what I have done in the past is I've actually used,
I know.
I've used masking tape and actually I'll use this one as an example.
Another watcher has used that as well.
Yeah, and I took masking tape and taped the inside seam, right? And then that way when you're soldering, the solder can't get through the masking tape. And then the masking tape will just peel off when you get done. So I forgot about that. But, you know, the old masking tape thing.
Sandra's asking about lids, which I think is what you're moving to next.
I'm trying to show lids, which I'm going to try to do this with
Sandra knew what we were going to do.
Yeah, thanks, Sandra, for keeping us on task.
So now this is a cute little trick too, because I don't do this, but I can certainly see the value in this.
Yeah, so, you know, again, we made lots of boxes, and one of the issues sometimes you run into with making boxes is, as I've talked about a lot, is that things don't always line up, that they're, you know, I'm using bevels, and maybe they're not all exactly the same size. So I'm going to put a lid on this box right here, and the issue...
Oh, that's really pretty.
Is that a nice box?
That's nice.
I wonder who made it.
Gosh, I love that box.
And so if I put a bevel on this one, as we were talking about, you know, so if we did it right, the inside seams would match up, and often what happens is the lid just falls right through, right? So I need the lid to be a little bit bigger, and so it's hard to make the bevels any bigger. So the trick I'm going to do here is I'm going to pin this. This is ball chain. I'm going to pin this down and solder the ball chain to the lid, and what that's going to make the lid a little bit bigger, right? So then now when I attach it, it'll stay up and it won't fall down. So real important that we pin it as tightly as we can. As tightly as we can to the edge of the glass here. Did I not? What's nice about ball chain is it's pretty flexible, really, so I can get it to bend around here for the most part. It's too long, I see. Let's do this.
So you're just doing 3 sides then?
Yeah, I'm not doing the back. You know why I'm not doing the back?
No, I don't.
That's where the hinge is going to go. And so you'll have a hard challenge trying to get the hinge on if you put the ball chain on. I have a couple of...
And then you just tack that in a few spots. You don't...
Yeah. No,
do you run a seam?
I'm going to run a seam.
Are you?
Yeah. I think.
Do you want me to do that for you?
Ooh. I was just using a pair of like wire cutters, right, to just trim down the ball chain. So I guess I didn't do a very good job.
Whee.
Oops. Oh, no, I just pulled that out. How did I do that? Okay, so 1 hour of the video is me
Oh my gosh.
trying to get the ball chain on.
Get that on there.
I'm kidding. I ran
I'm starting to get bored.
Starting. You've been bored. Okay, so, right, so I'm just going to pin it in place. I got some flux, right, because Kim's helping me remember to use flux. And this is like, I think the ball chain is nickel or something, but it works, so it's surprising that. Sorry, that's bugging me that that's too loose. Okay. I am starting by tack soldering, right? So I want to just attach this, and then I'll worry later about how, you know, making it look nice. I just want to get some solder on there and grab the ball chain. Oops.
Why is your hand shaking?
I don't know. Because all these people are watching me. Really, it's just because you're watching me. You're making me nervous.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Val's really critical of what You're going to critique me. I don't know.
No, I
Anyway.
think you're doing fabulous. That's a good idea. I mean, that really is. I just...
Right, so this is good enough for what we're doing, right? So
Yeah.
let me show you. So I have it on there. So now I can actually come in and then try to make it look a little bit better. I'm not gonna do the whole
gonna
thing
say,
again
you don't
because
have
we
to
don't
do
have time to do the whole thing. But basically, what I would do is come in and I try to cover like all the gaps in between the balls, right? So it kind of
So
makes
you're not leaving it as a decorative edge.
What?
Are you going to be soldering over top all of those so that you can't tell that it was ball chain?
Oh no! I'm trying
feel
not to do that. I'm trying to just get in between the. Actually, with this iron, I don't know if you can see, but I'm
It's
trying
a little
to go
hard to
in
see.
between the balls. Do you see this? Mm-hmm. And then
Yeah.
what that's going to do is.
Oh yeah, that's good.
I'm just trying to. What I'm really doing is attaching the entire chain to the to the outside
To the
surface,
foil, yeah.
right?
Yes, Molly, we are working on Homo Silk board. We always do when we're soldering here.
Yeah, it's a great board to work on if you're not familiar with it. You can pin into it like a million times, and obviously soldering on it doesn't do anything to it. It doesn't catch on fire or do anything weird, but does it? Does that help? So I'm again,
that's good.
I don't think I need to go through the whole
No,
thing.
no,
Just sort of
you're
get,
good.
but this is what I'm aiming for, right? I want to see the balls. I want them to be part of the decoration, right? I want them to almost look like I had made these little solder balls, which I haven't really done. But if you could kind of see how that looks, I like the look of that.
Yeah, I do
The other
too.
thing I want to show you real quickly is I didn't do anything to this backside because it's easier to put the ball chain on if this side is flat. My point of that is I didn't put a solder seam on here. I didn't try to make this look nice because I want it to sit flat to the board so it's easier to attach the ball chain. I mean, so if I had more time, then I would come in here and I would solder that, make that look all nice. But you guys know that
Good tip, though. Good tip.
you know that we don't have it. I don't have any time, so I'm just gonna solder this one last loose ball chain there to this bugger. So.
You didn't talk about this yet either.
No, yeah, so Val has this really nice product in her hand.
The mirror edge sealant. So that's just a protective coating we spray on the back of the mirror. Especially if obviously you're going to be soldering, fluxing, it just protects it. Yeah, we sprayed that one, and the back of this was a mirror too, right? Yeah. And so I mean, you don't have to use it, but I'm sure everybody has seen an old mirror where the silver coating on the back is flaking off, and you can kind of see, and it doesn't always look very good. That's what'll happen, especially when you add the flux and then the heat from the soldering iron. It's just a protective product, and we always use it, don't we? When we use mirror, I just
Yeah, the flux is pretty harsh on the silver coating of the. We do it to bevels. So we had a couple of mirrored bevels in one of these. Oh yeah, like this one is. I don't know how well you can see it. The back here is a beveled mirror. And then so I sprayed that, right? So I sprayed that one. That's the ML Walker. I sprayed that one.
No, on Van Gogh.
No? No, it wouldn't work on Van Gogh.
No, that's paint. That's not
Yeah, that's just painted on.
This is so. Anyways, like I said, so I just tack soldered that on. If I had time, I'd go in and fill that all in nice. But you can see how that surface there, I think, looks pretty decent. But this is going to go on here. But so now, do you see how that fits so nicely on top of there because of that little extra bit of space from the ball chain? And then here is where I'm going to attach the hinge. So again, you could see where maybe the ball chain would get in the way, especially of opening and closing. So that's why I didn't put the ball chain on the back.
Let's circle back to that really quick. So Molly's asking, do you add that before you've soldered or after our mirror edge sealant?
Oh gosh, sorry. Yeah,
I'm sorry, before.
Way
Before.
before, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what's nice about it, it takes like, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes to dry, so it doesn't even have to be.
Do that even before the foil?
Yeah, you do it before the foil.
In fact,
Yeah, very good.
years ago I taught that mirror class, and we would have a big mirror, and then we put borders around it. So I even cut the shape of the mirror first. I mean, so don't just spray a piece and then go in and cut, because
Definitely.
then you'll still have that raw edge. So get your piece established, whatever size you want. And then after it's cut, and that's exactly the size, then you spray. And then I kind of even go at an angle to hit the edges of it too, just to keep anything from seeping up in. Right?
Yeah, really, it's more about sealing the edge of the mirror, not necessarily the back, right? It's actually, like Val's talking about, it's that raw edge and then where the mirror is at. So if you spray the edge, you go around and spray the whole edge. So you flip the mirror over, right? So the glass side is down on a piece of paper. and then spray the edge. And just by spraying the edge, you'll probably spray the back, especially on these small, like 3-inch ones or 4-inch ones. I spray the back just without even trying. I'm concentrating on where the edge is at. If you get a little bit on the front of the mirror, you can just take it off with some acetone. We'll just clean off anything you got on the front. But I sprayed like 3 things and I didn't get anything on the front. It was worked out pretty well. So.
Is there a specific flux you're using on the mirrors, or will any flux do?
That's a great question, because I know sometimes people will try to use something that's a little safer to use, like the gel fluxes. Sometimes I think people use on them, but I don't think it really makes a difference personally. I mean, I use whatever flux Val pours out for me. So.
And then Lisa's asking, then we would wash and polish the box just like you would do for a window?
Yeah, we, for those of you that aren't familiar with doing the soldering and copper foil technique, is we would clean these pieces, right, with using some kind of flux remover. We have a variety of different types that we sell. We didn't bring them in, but again, if you get a chance and want to check out the video that we did on soldering, you'll see that we talk there really pretty about all the different types of cleaners that we have, and then we would polish them and with some kind of a finishing compound, and what that does is protect the solder seams so that they stay shiny looking, right? Basically, it's a way of keeping air off of the metal so it doesn't oxidize and they stay silver looking longer. So,
but it really cleans the solder pretty and shines things up really nice too.
Yes.
Okay, so talk about that.
So let's talk about this real quick. So I'm going to do the hinge, and I don't know if I'll get through the whole process, but hopefully you guys will see enough of it. So this is a rod and a tube, right? And they are brass. And so what I'm going to do is cut this tube, and that's what's going to go on the back of the piece. And then I cut 2 little pieces of the brass rod, and they're going to fit.
What did you cut it with?
Inside the tube.
Just the nippers?
I cut them with these wire cutters.
Oh, those are wire cutters.
Yes.
Okay.
I know what you're thinking. You want to use your lead nippers to do this, but I mean, you could, but it's a little hard on your lead nippers. But these could be lead nippers. I don't know. I grabbed them out of the toolbox. So, and then I cut, 2 little pieces, and you'll see I bent them in right angles. And what's going to happen is those are going to slide in there. Mm-hmm. These are going to get soldered. This part's going to get soldered into here, and then this is going to get soldered to the lid. So, does that make sense? Good.
So how do you cut the tube?
Yeah, let me show you how I'm going to cut the tube real quick, because I think this is probably one of the trickiest parts for most people is just cutting the tube.
Because you don't want to cave in that opening.
So I'm going to mark where I'm going to cut the tube, and so the tube is going to be, I'm trying to make it about just the exact same size as the lid. Sometimes
minus the ball chain?
Yeah, minus the ball chain. And if anything, if it's a hair small, that's better. That's better than a hair too big. So I marked it, with a Sharpie, so I know I need to cut it. Now, you can't just take like a pair of like lead nippers like this and just, I think they're wire cutters, and then just cut it, because you'll pinch it, right? You're gonna squeeze it shut. So what we have to do is, so do you see where I'm gonna take this rod, and now I know how far I can go in there, and I'm gonna slide it in there. Right, if I can get it in there. So what the rod's going to do is keep the tube from collapsing when I'm squeezing it. So now I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to just pinch it. So I'm not trying to cut through the tube at this point. Think of it almost as like scoring. Mm-hmm. So I'm squeezing it a little bit. I'm going to rotate the tube, squeeze it again, rotate it, squeeze it. Just keep moving it and squeezing it. And hopefully I'm in the same spot. I do apply a little more force as I go around, so I'm on the second go around, and I'll squeeze a little bit more. Again, I'm not trying to cut through it, right? That's not really the purpose here. I'm just trying to score it. Okay, we'll see if that's good enough. Then I can slide the rod out, maybe. I have so much flux on my hands, I can't pull it out. Can you pull it out? I don't think you're going to be able to, because I just coated it with, what I need is the, regular cleansers. That would be nice. So man, I did a nice job, and it was scoring it. So we're going to just go grab something to, can you grab me a paper towel too, please?
Oh my gosh.
Right, can you see though, hopefully you can see like where I've kind of scored it, right? So I've got these little marks in there. Really just trying to wipe off my hands.
Jim is asking, do you use a full length of tube all the time? So since you put a tube in there to keep the channel open, do you just have one in your studio the full length so it's the right size?
Oh, yeah. Well, usually I just have whatever rod that I have in place, right? So. Oh,
Try twisting.
I can't. That would be nice, but I can't. I can't hold on to it. My fingers are way too slippery. And we didn't bring any flux cleaner in here. Can you twist it?
Bend it.
Oh,
Probably not. That's fine. Yeah, I was getting it. It's bending.
Well, I don't care if you reckon, but.
So while Val is doing that, I do have a question.
Yeah.
Where are we placing our corner joints?
Yeah, so these corner joints are going to go into this seam. If you guys remember,
On the outside?
Yeah, on the outside. So if you remember, this is like a V shape, so that's going to fit right in there. So one thing I'm going to do while Val's trying to get that off is I'm going to, Val did a nice job of soldering this one and put these really nice seams in here. And so I need to get rid of some of the solder, right? I need to get rid of the solder about as far down as that is. So the length of this part is really just determined by the size of your box. So this is, I think, a decent sized box. It's like a 4-inch box. So I wanted to make sure that I'm going to solder down in there pretty good so that it's a little more durable, right? So less likely the hinge is going to come off.
So you wouldn't need to run that all the way to the bottom, just kind
No,
of
it's really not necessary.
a third of the way down?
Yeah. So I'm using gravity to help me here, right? You see I'm holding the box upside down, and here I'm just going to drip off that solder onto the table.
Undoing all her nice work.
I know. She's going to be mad.
I got it.
I don't think you knew yesterday I was going to do this, right?
Yeah, I knew.
No, I meant when you made the box, you didn't.
Oh, no, I did not know. Else
Oh.
I probably would have left it.
Hey, you found it. Sweet. Great. So this is where I did this. So now what I'm going to do is bend it, right? So I'm using my fingers, going to kind of bend it, kind of go back and forth till it just snaps off, right? The other thing that helps is something else I forgot to bring in is a small file. Sometimes you need a small file to just kind of clean that up a little bit. One thing you want to do is make sure that
Yeah, that you can get those in
that
there.
you can get those in there.
No?
Like I said, it really helps to have a file. Sometimes this is, when I cut this one also with the wire cutters, it pinches it. I don't know if you can see that well, and that sometimes flares it a little too much.
Let's see if I
Like
can
said,
do it.
Normally, I have a file that I use. Give me half a second here. There's one in the big toolbox.
Oh, there we go.
On the bottom.
You can kind of see right
It's a
there what he's
really-
talking about,
it's
how
a-
it's...
Really big one.
It's a big one?
Yeah. No. The guy pictured me like making a face at Val, like that's not the right tool, honey. Sorry, we're not in our normal classroom. Well, we're in
For
the fusing
stained glass.
classroom. We're in we're not in our stained glass classroom. We're in our fusing classroom just because we like the lighting in here a little bit better, and plus we get to have this fun, colorful wall behind us.
And we can close the door.
And not all, we can close the door, and so we don't always, we have to try to remember to bring in all of our tools, and I forgot to bring in a couple tools. So.
But this is a good time, if you guys have any questions, to ask us while we're here and trying to locate that file.
Yeah, so here's a file that I have here. So Val was kind enough to grab it for me. I'm just filing that edge just so it's a little cleaner.
This goes into.
Sometimes we file this little edge too, so it slides in.
Yeah, it should go.
Did you get it?
Yeah.
I think this is the one I pinched. I think it's just got a little flare on it. I'm trying to take it off.
So I think this is way open, so I think it was that was the problem.
Oh, maybe it is. see if that did it. Nope.
Try it in the other end.
Helena, don't you worry. We will be posting this live video once we're done so you can catch the beginning.
Oh, I can. Or if you got really bored and you gotta leave, you can.
You can fast forward through us later.
I can't get those in. This mouse.
So what would be something that could fix that, or why is it not going in, and what can we avoid?
It really is just an issue of you need to file them. It happens every time. It's just the process of having to cut the brass, whether you're cutting the rod or the tube, either creates some kind of a flaring like I'm getting on this, or it's a or the tube gets kind of closed over a tiny bit. So
Lisa's asking while you're working on that, any tips on how to solder a ring onto a sun catcher without it constantly wiggling or dripping off or dropping off?
Well, it is tricky. I mean, it's tricky. Same kind of concept though, is that you want to try to tack it first, and then let it cool a little bit. I think that's often where we get into trouble, is when we keep trying to go after something and not allow some of that heat to dissipate, because if that solder stays hot, then it's easy to make it drop by adding some more hot solder to it. You know what I mean? So like tack it on there just to get it on there. Don't worry about whether it's really on good or not, and then wait a few minutes and then go back and add another glob or another dot, and then that's kind of right. Would you agree?
yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, and if you can like pin it down too, that sort of helps. So if you can get, if you're doing it down flat, you can pin it so that the ring doesn't want to move on you as you're hitting it with the soldering iron. That's sometimes a tricky issue. So I did finally get those in. I know that took like 20 minutes. Sorry about that. These are in, so you can see, like, right, you can see how I'm rotating them. I don't want to slide them in and out because I might not get them back in, but you get it, right? So it goes like that. Now, so then what I'm going to do here is solder this to the back, and same deal, right? So you'll see that I've used pins a few times to hold things in place. So one of the things that the pins will do here is hold this tight up against the back of the lid, and then I'm going to put a pin up here so I don't shove the whole thing out of my way, right? And then we're going to come in with some flux. Now the brass, what's tricky about this is the brass takes a little more heat than the solder does, or the copper foil in particular, right? So I want to, when I come in and solder this, you're going to see I'm putting the iron on the brass, not on the glass.
I can get a good angle on that.
And I'm trying to, it's going to be the same deal here. I'm going to try to tack solder this, I think. Well, that's actually doing pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
It helps to have a nice hot iron, right? So I'm on the brass, not on the glass. Once it's on there, I can take away the pins. Now, the other really super tricky thing here is I don't want to solder where these are at, right? Because I don't want to solder that in. So I want to kind of avoid that if I can. I'm going to get as close as I can, but I'm not going to hopefully solder those. One of the nice things about brass is when the brass heats up, it's like, if you've heard the term like sweating pipes that like plumbers do, when the brass gets hot, the solder will flow down there. So I don't actually have to take the iron to the very, very tip. I just have to let the brass get hot and have enough solder there so that it will just flow down to where the tip is at. So if I just give it a second and come down, you can see where it kind of covers up that end without me having to solder it too much.
Yes, Helena, this particular box that Val made is constructed all of bevels.
Yes.
So that's what we're going to add the lid to.
Yep, so then you can see I still did, I did a decent job, right? Because these are still moving. That's good. We're going to put this back on top. So, and then these should hopefully just fall into where these seams are at. To see how that brass is going to fall there. That one's going to fall there. And then this is pretty easy to do, is to just, same deal, right? I'm just going to tack solder these. This one could bend in a little bit more. There it goes. So flux. I'm just, probably one thing you can't see is I'm just trying to hold the box kind of square to the top of that. So I'll come in here.
Did we use tape?
Oh, yeah, sometimes we tape them.
Tape sometimes too.
I need to set my solder back up, so again, like this, right? So I can get at it. Again, clean tip where we'll hold the solder will stay on there and not drip off. There it goes. And here, same sort of deal like we often do, right? I'm just trying to get some solder in there. I don't really care what it looks like. I just need it to get there and then cool down so that if I want to go back in and make it look nice, it's not so hot that it's just melting all over the place. Then we're going to come over to this one. We're going to do the same thing. Forgot to wipe my tip off. Looks nice. I can use the wedgies here to, well, I can use one wedgie. I can use a small wedgie and a big wedgie. Now, if I want to make that try to look a little bit better, I'm only going to do one seam just because of time. So, because Val has something really kind of fun to show you here in just a second. So, so that's cool enough because I've taken enough time. It's not too hot. I have a simple rule about when I'm trying to solder into something I've already soldered. If I can't touch it, if it's too hot to touch, then it's too hot to try to solder back in. Because again, if I try to solder too much, I don't want the solder to melt and go somewhere I don't want it to go. So.
But you also have to be careful here too, not to go too far up into the hinge, right? You don't want to freeze totally that correct. Hinge up by getting solder in there.
I don't.
Helena said this would be really fun with Christmas lights inside and a bow.
Oh yeah.
Oh, what a great idea.
It would be pretty. I mean, it's just pretty.
It's a nice one. Anyway.
Yeah, so you just heal those back up, and then you've embedded that in there, and that's...
Yep, and then if I did this correctly, here's the big reveal, right? This should open.
Yay, that's
wacky.
Pretty.
Oh, did I have to do the chain? No. Okay, so we don't have time for this, but I will tell you. We would solder a chain, right? So sometimes we solder chains on the inside so the lid doesn't just flop over, which can put a little pressure there where the foil is at. So what we would do is solder like probably up here, right? So I would solder here, and then I would solder so that you pick some dimension, like you go, oh, I'll solder it to here or whatever, right? And then you would solder inside the box like this. And I did bring the most important tool for doing that. This is a toothpick, because I can tell you that it's really hard to hold this chain and hold a soldering iron and try to drop a little bit of solder there because you'll burn your fingers. So what I always do is use this little, the reason why I'm using a toothpick is it says small and it won't interfere with what I'm trying to do. So I can come in here and hold that. Now I can take the soldering iron and just drop a little bit of solder right there, and I don't have to worry about burning my fingers or burning anything else, right? I would do the same thing on the inside. So I would just grab this, just stick it in through the loop of the chain, and then hold that in place here and then drop some solder in there. So I can, again, keep everything away. So then I would have done the same thing in the lid. Does that make sense? I think.
Yeah, makes sense.
Good. If you have questions about that, Val and I'll do like a 4-hour video on how to attach the chain.
So like there are 2 different ways to do this. This particular one, we're using a normal leaded solder. Again, if you're worried about people touching it, kids, that sort of thing, a lead-free solder would work as well.
Yep. Yeah, Val, there's a couple of things about lead-free solder. One is that it's nice because it's lead-free. It's shinier because it contains more tin. Some people like that about it. But it does require usually a little bit hotter iron sometimes because it has a little higher melting temperature. But it's all good now.
Neat.
Yeah. What do you want to show them your trees?
Okay, we're just going to show you. Well,
we're done
keeping with the theme of the bevels being kind of fun and quick things you could do for gifts or whatever, or just for your own decor, right? Because these are, I did these a couple years ago too, and they're still together, and which is good, and they're really just relying on UV glue. Oh, okay. So the UV glue that we have here is, there's 2 of them we have, and one of them is the viscosities are different. So one of them has a higher viscosity, which makes it thicker. And that's the one
they're opposite.
Huh? Is it opposite?
I know, it's one of those weird words, so it's opposite of what you think.
I just looked at it and I thought, okay, well, anyway, I want the thicker one.
Kimberly, we see your comment, and Val's going to practice yelling for you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm trying, well, I'm talking as loud as I feel like I should, but that's okay, I'll try harder. Okay, so anyway, this is just using stock bevels. I think Kaylee took a picture of a couple of the trees. Obviously the base was soldered, so that goes along with the actual boxes. But the trees, once again, because there are so many different sizes of bevels, you could do this in so many different ways. I start with, these are 2-inch squares. So I started with those as just the base of the tree. Then this is like a 2x3. I put these stacked on top. So yeah, if you can see on one of my trees, I just kept them straight. On one of the other ones, I kind of turned them, because then I decided if I kind of staggered them a little bit, that gave them a little more sparkle factor, you know. But the real tricky part, or the only tricky part about this UV glue, is you have to have a UV light to activate it. So the beauty of it is it does it quick. So that allows you to sort of do these kind of three-dimensional things. Now you can play around and kind of do it, find better ways maybe to do it. I kind of constructed it by kind of holding it, and then we decided, I laid it down this morning and kind of put some UV glue in the seam, and I can show you that. I actually even used a couple of these little wedgies that helped. But I can just show you, and we do sell that light, right? But I think we have a few of them in stock, but we're gonna source and I believe pick up an actual flashlight, because
What we currently have is this model.
right, and it does, and it works.
It works, yeah.
It works, but I think that we found that the flashlights might be a little better, and we're gonna so anyway, we do have a few of these still left in stock, and they do work really well. I'm just gonna, it's hard for me to do without, I'm just gonna kind of put those together, and then try to put a little glue just in between them. And you know, the other kind of cool thing about this UV glue is that you're not going to get it, I mean, you don't get it on your hands and then everything starts sticking to you, because it doesn't get stuck together or stuck to anything until you activate it. So
So it's not like a super glue then.
yeah, so here's the UV light in the flashlight, and I can show you the other one. It works too. It's just this one's a little easier to keep my hand out of the way. And truly, we're always amazed at how fast it can go. So I've just sort of holding it there, kind of go up and down. And then let's see if we're so together, right? And then the bottom, I like to do sort of in between. Is this the one I want?
Yes.
You don't know.
I don't know. So one of the things about the working with ultraviolet flashlight or the light is it's one of those things that you're not supposed to look at, right? You're not supposed to stare at the light. So you'll notice that Val's always shining it away from her. Then you can see it kind of casting that kind of purpley light on the table, but that's the UV light.
So how did I do? I think I want to do it. Oops, wrong one.
This one you had bevel side up.
I had this one in between, I believe.
Oh, the joint?
Yeah.
That's what you did in between.
Yeah, but I somehow rocked this one, so it's not exactly working. I can do it. I can do it.
I believe you.
I'm just putting a little bit on the edge. And
So a little bit goes a long way on these.
yes, and then I'm doing, and it does dry really clear too, so now I'm trying to, for some reason I think it's the table or something that's not.
Oh, the board maybe.
Yeah, the board's not. So I'm going to need you to come over here
Okay.
and hit it with the light. Or if you can't get through, maybe I can do it.
I can come around.
So here's the top
Well,
of
I was
one
gonna
that
say,
Val
I
has
mean, I
done
had to run all over
previously.
the place to get your stuff. So
And you can barely even tell that there was any glue there.
yeah. So I mean, it's almost, you know, I mean, it's this is how quick it can be. It's
You want me to
just-
hold it?
Yeah, but I think I'm good. See how quick that was? I mean, seriously, right?
By the time Roy got there, it was done.
No, sometimes the top gets, you know, and then after I do this initially, I will kind of go back and like hit the top again. You know, I'm just kind of getting it together, and then I know I may have to go back.
Almost like tack soldering.
Yeah, I know I may have to go back. But it is interesting, isn't it? How it just. Yeah, I can do it.
I turned it on.
But, you know, for those of you who foil and solder, and I mean, this is pretty sweet. It goes together like really quick. So, I know these are all kind of in the way, but then the base, you know, I often do the base first, but like I said, it's just going to be, the base is really easy because I just put a dab on, you know, the bottom one. I just put a little circle, hardly any because you don't really need it much, right? And then I just kind of turn it, kind of try to balance out the, let's make sure I'm kind of centered. That's on, it was already starting to,
Oh, was it?
it was already, I mean, this, like I said, to me, this is just, it's amazing how quick this goes. Or I can show you this light too, right? I mean, this light's the one, like I said, that we sell. So another little drop, and then this, like I said, this is the new thing I did yesterday because I think it makes it sparkle more.
And you can probably feel it setting up, right? So
Yeah.
you'll know when it's safe to let go.
Yeah. See, I'm just kind of spinning it or trying to push. See how I'm just pushing and it's actually pushing the whole thing? It's because it's already stuck. So it, like I said, it really is kind of amazing. And you can, because of all the different sizes, you know, you can make smaller ones or larger ones, or you can make the base out of a square mirror, or you can make it out of, you know, the triangles or the diamond-shaped ones. I thought the diamond-shaped ones might be cute as the base too. But it's all going to be, like I say, sparkly, and I was just like thinking I'd keep the cost down a little bit by using these 2x2s. I think they're like 80 cents a piece or something. So once again, I think you can do kind of a cute one and not even have that much invested in it. So anyway, we thought we would just show you because it's another quick and easy thing. And like I said, I've given them as gifts, and people get them out every year, so they must like them. So then I would just glue that on top. You can make your base as tall as you want, you know, and you can make several and stagger the heights.
Didn't you hang an ornament in one of these one time?
One time I did. I just kind of taped. I can't remember. I think I glued a string and hung down, which I don't like so much.
Oh.
But I really like putting a little tea light in. So anyway, just some stuff to play around with that you might enjoy to do. And like I said, I use the thicker UV, whichever viscosity that was. You think it's the low?
Yes.
You do? We'll check on that.
We'll link them for you guys.
Okay. Okay. All right. So what else?
Well, I think that's probably about it. I think I was going to do something with some decorative soldering, but I think we're really probably out of time.
That was probably a great secondary video on
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah, so yeah, maybe we'll come back and we'll do something just on decorative soldering, because that's probably going to take a little bit longer than what this was going to do. So, you know, like we've said before, if you have other ideas, I mean, feel free to get a hold of us, and you know how to do that, right? Email us at Facebook@delphiglass.com, or message us on Instagram and Facebook, and I think that was it.
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today. Sorry I ran over a little bit, but we
Yeah.
had a lot we wanted to get covered. So,
I think the next one will be coming up in December, and that will probably be another quick gift idea, maybe.
yeah, I think
that's what it's going to be.
Is that it? Okay.
That.
Or if you guys want something different, let us know.
Yeah, let us know. Right. We need
Well, thanks.
suggestions.
See you guys next
Yeah,
time.
thanks.